Hi, this is Alana Kilkenny, and I'm an intuitive counselor and feng shui designer. And today I want to speak to you about something that is very prevalent in today's society and something that I'm sure we're all feeling on some level, and that's a feeling of disconnection. Whether you're feeling disconnected from yourself, or whether you're feeling just disconnected from those around you, or feeling even disconnected from even the larger community or world around you. I would say that as a society, we're feeling incredibly disconnected on the whole. And so one of the things that I think is helpful is not to just discuss what disconnection is or what it feels like, but to really talk about some antidotes to the problem. Because in everyday life, you might be very aware that you're actually feeling disconnected, and I think actually most of us often will feel this sense of dis-ease that way, this sense of even just not only a loneliness, but a feeling of just, again, not necessarily being in community or communing with the people that are in our lives and really feeling that connecting. So I want to talk about some very practical antidotes that help tremendously. One of the main ways in which people actually are disconnecting from themselves and from others is actually through complaining. It might not be what you would think, because often we associate complaining with many different things. Like most of us, if we're honest with ourselves, know that complaining is probably not the best thing and probably doesn't feel so great when we do it. Yet, I would say it's one of the most prevalent ways that we communicate with people, whether it's people who are close to us or whether it's even just people kind of in the periphery of our lives. So whether it is, I live in New York City, whether it's you're complaining in a taxi about the weather to a taxi driver, or whether you're complaining about what didn't happen, or at work about somebody did this or said this, or whether it's even with your significant other in terms of disappointments or something else, or even just making fun of a situation. All these forms of complaining really don't bring us together. It really actually brings us further apart. But even beyond bringing us further apart from each other, it actually does something much more insidious. It actually takes us away from ourselves. It takes us away from our core, because it doesn't actually give us what we're looking for. Often when we're complaining, we unconsciously are trying to find some common ground with somebody. We're trying to possibly get some empathy from somebody else. We're possibly trying to work out what's really bothering us. Or sometimes, quite frankly, you're not even sure why you're complaining. You're just falling into the energy of that because maybe you realize that your group of friends or the people that you're around, that's what they're doing. And kind of just to make it work socially, you end up finding yourself complaining when even maybe you're feeling pretty good that day or in that moment. One way or another, complaining never again brings you closer. Now, I want to make a distinction. I'm not advocating that if there's something really going on that you need to explore and are having trouble with, I'm not saying you don't talk about it. I'm not talking about pretending everything's fine when it's not. That's repression. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about there's a difference between actually working through something that's upsetting you and trying to get to an answer or to a sense not only about solution, but maybe a sense of clarity or peace about it, versus complaining. Complaining almost never gives you peace. It almost never gives you clarity. It just muddies the water more. So what's an antidote to that? One of the most powerful antidotes to that, I have to credit to an amazing writer and author as well as workshop leader. His name's Rick Jarrow. And Rick Jarrow gave this exercise many years ago to me and my husband in a group that we were doing, it's called the Manifestation Group. But this really applies to anyone. It's not necessarily a spiritual thing, it's just a great practice. And this antidote is this. He said if you really want to do the master class on this, you take a week and you make a complete dedication not to complain. Now, let me explain to you what that means, okay? It doesn't just mean in the global way not complaining. It doesn't mean not just having a big conversation where you're complaining about something. It does fall into that category of not complaining about the weather. It does fall into that category of if you're running late or there's traffic, not complaining about traffic. And it absolutely still entails also larger things about not complaining about other things that are happening in your life or complain about somebody else, especially if it's something that's, continuing and something that's really entrenched. Now, what I would say to you is some people will hear that, because even this group that was doing work for quite some time on different things, by the time we got this antidote, if you will, of not complaining for a week, there were literally audible groans in the workshop. People were just like, oh my God, because they knew, you could just hear it. You knew that that was going to be a hard thing not to do. And it was interesting because as soon as we realized, wow, this is going to be a hard thing to do, you realize what the payoff of that is. You actually realize, wow, if that's so hard to do, then it must be something that we're actually doing a lot. We must be complaining a lot. And it's probably now into the realm of unconscious things that you're doing, where you don't even feel like you have control over it. So what I would say to you is the week absolutely is the master class. And I would absolutely say if you do that, what Rick said at that time is absolutely true. It really is life-changing when you don't complain for a week, or at least when you put that intention and you work on it. I would even say to you, try it for one day. Start there, if it feels like a week's too long. Start for one day, but here's what I want to say to you. What often happens to people, it's just like a diet or anything else, what will happen is you will absolutely find yourself complaining during that day. You will find yourself going to complaining, starting a sentence where you're complaining, and don't stop there. Don't give up just because you do it. What I would say to you is that's just, again, letting you know that that's your default for right now. So just stop. Stop mid-sentence and decide not to. Okay? A few things will probably happen, so I want to let you know about that. You might find that maybe you have nothing else to say in certain situations. So sometimes the answer will be this: get more comfortable with being uncomfortable in that situation, because it might be uncomfortable. And either you get more creative about what you want to speak about, or if it's somebody you trust, you could even just frankly say, I'm actually doing this and I'm working really hard not to complain, and it's actually awkward. And think about what are some of the things that you're missing in your life that you want to discuss. What is some of the very things that you're complaining about? I would actually turn it on its head and say, okay, let's say I was going to complain about something that somebody did to me. Well, instead of taking that moment to complain, maybe really what it really is, having a better conversation about what is the content of that in terms of what I'm missing. What does that mean? So as an example, you're having a problem, an issue at work. You're complaining that your boss is telling you, giving you all this work and not giving you all the support you need to get it done. So maybe you actually have a conversation about, I could really maybe use some help with it right now in terms of trying to figure out how can I get this done, or how should I ask for the support that I need. Because sometimes the complaining is actually trying to point out something where you need some help. So turn it on its head and maybe actually try to get something from it instead. If you find that the complaining you're about to do is just filling in time or filling in social awkwardness, then you might have to just kind of sit with that. You might maybe sit with the fact that maybe if you're in a group of people who are complaining, maybe that's actually not feeding you very much right now. And you don't need to go on a soapbox and tell them not to complain, which a lot of people do, by the way, when they first start doing this, which is not going to make you very popular. and frankly, you haven't really processed it enough yourself, so maybe you don't do that. But maybe you actually just get more comfortable with maybe being a little quieter until you actually find your rhythm again about what you do want to contribute to a conversation and what would actually feel good for you. So I would say try it for a day, but I would say the master class is a week. And you might want to, during that week, actually take some notes as you go along. Maybe you bring a little journal along with you and kind of bring up what's happening during that time. When you're not indulging in it, what are some of the stuff that's coming up for you? Because quite frankly, it's that aspect of it that actually might really make you feel more connected. Because maybe that's the meat of what's really going on in terms of what's making you feel distanced from things. Another note just on complaining for a moment. The thing I also want to say about complaining is I want you to start being really aware. When you're not the one doing the complaining, you could be a better observer. When you notice that people are complaining to each other, how do they seem to be relating to each other? Are they really listening to each other? Do they seem like when they leave, watch when two people who are complaining leave each other. Do they actually look relieved? Do they actually look like they feel better? Do they actually look happier? Or do they feel possibly more drained? Or do they feel angrier? Do they actually just look kind of, more grumpy when they leave? It's something from a distance sometimes when you watch that you start realizing, wow, is that the energy that I'm putting out, not only out there, but that I'm also feeding myself with? And that becomes actually, great fodder for choosing to do something else. Another great antidote that I want to tell you about is an antidote that I actually have used in my life quite often during times where I felt very either stuck and like inertia, like things were not moving, or I felt, like paralyzed about moving forward about certain things, which also leads to a feeling of disconnection. Or at times when, whether I was in a place that felt really sad or kind of stuck in that way, or quite frankly, when I've given this to so many clients and so many friends, when they have felt a deep sense of dis-ease within themselves in terms of feeling present. And so this is actually from Julia Cameron's seminal book. It's called The Artist's Way. And one section of this book, which is a big tool that Julia talks about in her book, is about the morning pages. So if you want to get a lot more information about the morning pages, you can go get the book. But I want to talk to you about sort of like the core of it, the core nugget of it. And what that is basically every morning for a while, I would give it at least a week, but I would say probably even longer than that, so maybe a month. What you want to do is you want to keep a pad of paper right near your bed with a pen already ready to go. And you want to wake up, I would say maybe 15 minutes earlier, and what you do is you literally just write 3 pages. Handwriting, I wouldn't do it on a tablet or a computer. There is some grace with doing it with your handwriting, and you just write. Okay, sounds really simple. Well, what does that mean? That means no editing. That means you don't have to be brilliant with what you're writing. And some days I'm going to tell you what it will look like. Some days you'll be writing and you'll be like, I'm so tired, I don't want to be writing. Some days you'll be writing and you'll be writing, I had the worst dream, I feel horrible, my stomach hurts. You know, also it'll be all these even possibly complaints that you have, but you'll be getting it out on the page. Sometimes it'll be a dream that perhaps you weren't even aware that you knew your dreams or that you even remembered your dreams, but maybe it was a dream. Sometimes it might even go to deeper desires. Sometimes it might have to do with an idea that you had or something that you're waking up, you know, pondering or questioning. Whatever it is, you don't judge it. You just write it. You don't even ever have to read it again. It's just to get it out. Now, what does this do? What this does is, A, the dedication of that time to do it is an instant message to your being that you're taking some time to yourself. On a very basic level, that does something right there. But on another level, what that does is, I always say it's kind of like clearing out like the gook that you've accumulated, you know, even during sleep time. Sometimes, you know, we wake up and we don't feel so vibrant or awake or so in our bodies or in our beings when we first wake up. So whatever the unconscious stuff that's happening when we're sleeping or that we're processing from the days before, it gives it a place to actually just get it out on paper, to get it out, to be even aware of it. Sometimes even just to put it away, meaning you get it out, and sometimes some of that stuff isn't anything you have to do anything with. It's just was in the way of you starting your day. Other times there's really some hidden gold in that, I would say again. Sometimes what you'll find is sometimes some of my great ideas that I've had for things have come through doing morning pages. Because sometimes that's when I'm most vulnerable or open to it. You know, maybe it was something that was in a dream, or maybe all of a sudden I realized, wow, I just had 3 dreams in a row that had a similar theme. So it's actually trying to tell me something to take a look at. Whatever it is, doing the morning pages in the beginning, I have to tell you, starts just clearing the cobwebs. I would say it's great clearing the cobwebs kind of exercise emotionally. And what starts happening is you start just feeling a sense of deeper connection with yourself. And it also creates, again, you know, this other dynamic and this other communication with yourself where you actually are paying attention to how you are and what's going on with you in the beginning of your day. So therefore, as you're going on through your day, as you maybe lose some of that connection, as the velocity of your life is such where it gets so busy, or you're being called in all these different directions and being pulled to do different things, you have a base in the morning where you actually did connect with yourself. And there's something about having that muscle strengthen. Something about the repetitive nature of doing it every day. It actually builds on each other. So that what happens is you'll find that it's easier to connect again in with yourself as your day spins away from you. You'll be able to connect deeper in. So this is Alana Kilkenny. I hope that some of these antidotes actually will help you create more connection to yourself and hopefully to others. And I would say be brave and try them, especially if there was one that you heard that you said, oh, I don't know about that one, but kind of curious about it. I would say that's the one that you should start with, because that's probably where the deepest gifts are going to come from.